Hey, folks. It is Friday, March 6th, 2026. You're listening to the Daily Ledger Show, and I'm your host, Dennis Serse. Great to be here with you tonight. We got a chill live stream tonight. We're going to talk about some odds and ends, just some stories that were kind of in the backlog that I didn't get to in the week. Should be a fun discussion, short and sweet, and hopefully entertaining. We're going to talk about how Claude does a surprisingly good job at identifying and solving bugs. We're going to talk about a story that was kind of out there a few weeks ago that I didn't cover regarding Claude code being used to basically hack the Mexican government, get a bunch of money and information. We're going to talk about Cluely CEO Roy Lee. He made it into the news. We're going to talk about Claude's consumer growth surge continues after Pentagon deal debacle. And we're going to talk some more about Anthropic to challenge Department of War's supply chain label in court. Before we get into it, make sure to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Give it a follow if you're on Instagram Reels or if you're on TikTok. I realize I don't have my light, so give me like 5 seconds. I'm going to take care of that. All right, there we go. I think lighting is really important, so had to call an audible there. But okay, let's just dive right into it here. Let's get that share screen going, and we'll just dive right into it. Okie dokie. So we'll start today at the race to replace GPS. Now, the content of the article wasn't incredibly interesting to me, but basically it was kind of talking about how like jammers are being used in like the Strait of Hormuz and like the Ukrainian and Russian front lines and stuff. So it kind of goes into that in this article. But what I thought was specifically interesting was this comment about how Anthropic's Claude sniffed out a bevy of bugs. Tools powered by AI are increasingly adept at spotting vulnerabilities and are beginning to rival seasoned security experts. Some experts worry about those same capabilities will unleash a new wave of cyber attacks. This is really interesting because of two reasons. One, a lot of companies aren't yet awake to the big changes that are coming to the industry just with tech and with AI, right? So the tech industry via AI. A lot of traditional software engineers are still like, possibly to motivated by keeping their job, but also just because they don't want to, have their ego be burnt. They don't want to admit that something could be better than them at coding. What they'll do is they'll basically just take any opportunity to just rant about how AI has hallucinations and AI is bad and AI will never replace a human, which are just all false, right? Hallucinations were a problem back in 2022 and 2023. Okay, now they've implemented RAG. They've done, there's lots of startups that are combating hallucinations. Some of them have been bought out and acquired, right, by the big AI players. Like, hallucinations aren't a problem anymore. Okay. And it's like, and yet that's still a point that these Luddites and these AI doomers will still kind of cling to because it's so tied to their own job security, right? So that's the first insight that's kind of interesting from that. The second thing is that it got me thinking about how Hackers weaponized Claude code in Mexican government cyber attack, right? The AI was used to write exploits, create tools, and automatically exfiltrate over 150 gigabytes of data, right? So a few weeks ago, some guy came out, some like anonymous hacker, solo hacker. He used Claude code to engineer these like cybersecurity attacks, and then from a bunch of like Mexican government entities, he was able to extract data and stuff. Um, yeah, so it's like the power of Claude code and the power of tools like Claude code that are emerging. It's like the power of AI in general. Like we're only just beginning to grasp what it can possibly do, right? A lot of people still have their head in the sand because, it's tough to feel bad. Like no one wants to feel bad, I guess, but it's like you kind of have to embrace the suck. Like you have to embrace how bad things are and just kind of face it head on, right? You can't hide from it. Like you can't show fear, right? You can't be a coward. You have to face it like head on with bravery, right? And with courage. So this is what's happening. We just have to be brutally honest about it, right? Claude code is, hacking data from Mexican government entities successfully, right? And sooner or later, it's going to take your law job, your lawyer job, your lawyer position. It's going to take my software engineering position. It's going to take, pretty much anything you can think of, the front desk workers position, receptionist, veterinarians, right? I mean, doctors, like, why would you go to the doctor anymore unless you like broke your arm? You know what I mean? Like, if you have something, unless you need something, like for me, it's like, I don't even, I don't want to project myself, but it's like I have absolutely no reason to go to the doctor unless like something very specific happened, and I just need the doctor to sign off on a medication or something. I mean, I can't even think of any example. Let's say I need a specific antibiotic for something, or maybe I need like a tetanus shot because I fell on like rust or something like that, right? Whatever. Um, so I'm not the best example here, but like the point being, like some people only go to the doctor just to get a signature. Like, oh my god, a doctor signed off on this prescription or whatever, right? Hypothetically. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of the doctor? That's the point. They can be easily replaced by AI. So, just yet another example of a career replaced by AI, right? And yet, like, I mean, we're looking here. The hacker exfiltrated over 150 gigabytes of data, including civil registry files, tax records, and voter data. Roughly 195 million identities have been exposed in the breach. But guys, AI hallucinates. Oh my God. Give me a break. Give me a break, please. Bill Gates's TerraPower gets approval to build a new nuclear reactor. So this is kind of cool. Another nuclear reactor, more power for the next data center. How about that? Cluely CEO Roy Lee admits to publicly lying about revenue numbers last year. See, this title is so spun because here's Roy Lee kind of talk. So who is Roy Lee? He's the CEO of this company called Cluely. Well, the product is called Cluely, and basically it helps you crack interviews like with AI, real time AI. And I guess recently he rebranded it to helping you take meeting notes, and so I'm going to talk about that in a second. But yeah, so this is an X post that he kind of put up yesterday, actually around noon. And I guess he's kind of talking. I'll just read it. He goes, oh, okay. So what he's doing is he's reposting and somebody else's and he's commenting on someone else's, I guess, jab. So this random person said, this must have been a straight up lie. At $20 a month subscription, they would have needed 29,166 paid subscribers to justify this. No amount of attention can get that many people to open their wallets when you don't have a stable and working product. First of all, a lot of people who I know who use that product, it's a very stable and working product, okay? And they're extremely profitable. I mean, any company with $136,000 in monthly recurring revenue, they're doing just fine. I mean, that's great, right? Okay, like so anyway, so he goes, kinda. Here's our stripes from June 2025. Got a random cold call from some woman asking about our numbers and told her some BS. Did not expect an article about it. Here's what we were doing at the time. Consumer ARR, annual recurring revenue, 2.7 million, run rate 3.8 million. Enterprise ARR, 2.5 million, run rate 2.5 million. Total 5.2 million ARR, 6.3 million run rate. This was the only blatantly dishonest thing I've said publicly online, so this is my formal retraction. My bad, TechCrunch, void. We're profitable, by the way. Yeah, so it's a good company, but it's like TechCrunch just jumped on the opportunity to kind of diss him. Sorry, I need to call an audible because I wanted to figure out exactly what void meant. I should have looked this up before the show, but it's a derogatory slang term primarily used in incel online communities. And it's short for femoid, which combines female and humanoid. The term is intentionally dehumanizing. Okay, so he's okay, so he's shitting on TechCrunch, which is why TechCrunch is extremely hostile in this article, right? Anyways, I wanted to paint it like that because when you read this, it makes him look like an ass, but the guy's not an ass. TechCrunch just hates him, and Roy Lee hates TechCrunch. So, what are you gonna do? You have to be able to like pick out propaganda like this. There goes the light. Anyways, let's get to what I was gonna say on this kind of below. Cluely has since rebranded itself as an AI-powered meeting note taker, but in admitting the lie on Thursday and posting numbers from his Stripe account, Lee appears to have forgotten his own advice. So you can like see the vitriol just in every word. But like, here's the thing. So, when you're doing like controversial stuff, like if you let me put it like this, like if you're off the beaten path just even slightly, like you're gonna have lots of haters, you're gonna have lots of like enemies. Okay, now the trick to winning, because people don't really like winners, right? It's kind of like that crab analogy where it's like, if there's a bucket of crabs who have been caught, I guess, by a fisherman, and then if a crab tries to escape, the other crabs will literally grab it with his claw and, prevent one of the crabs from escaping, right? So it's the same mentality. It's like, you kind of have to be careful when you're getting off of the beaten path. And this also includes like just being extremely successful in life, just as a theoretical concept, right? Because suddenly it's like you're that crab, and it's like suddenly, you get kind of like unwanted attention where it's like, oh, well, he can't hang out with us anymore. It's like a status thing where it's like, oh, well, he can't hang out with us anymore. He's too good for us. Or, you get that kind of unwanted attention, right? So that's why a lot of like, let's say startup founders who ended up making it lose a lot of their friends if they're not careful, because suddenly one's like a multimillionaire, billionaire, and then the other one's, working at McDonald's. Like, I hate to put it like that, but that's just kind of the reality. You can kind of see the sentiment that I'm kind of invoking with that. Now, why did I say that? Because it connects to the story, but specifically with Roy Lee from Cluely. It's like, dude, here's the point. Like, if you have come out with a stellar product that helps you crack coding interviews and interviews in general, right? Just fucking stick with it. Okay. Like, if you're off the beaten path, the only thing you can do, right, is accept it. The only thing you can do is own it and be like, bitch, I'm the villain. You know what I mean? What are you going to do about it? Right? It's like, you can't stray off the beaten path and then acquiesce to the haters, because you cannot expect sympathy from your enemies. You cannot expect sympathy from your haters, okay? They will never give you any sympathy. If you reveal any sort of chink in your armor or any sort of weakness of any kind, any temporary lapse of confidence or anything, they will chew you up and spit you out. You can never do anything like that, show weakness or acquiesce to the haters, right? So that's unfortunately my gripe with Roy Lee, who should have been the Alex Jones of coding interviews. He should have been the Alex Jones of the tech world, right? Because here he was with this product with hundreds of thousands of users, from what I understand, just as a user count. Lots and lots of ARR. Seems like last year, June 2025, $136,000 in ARR, or in MRR, excuse me, which is really good. Around 2.5 mil in ARR, right? So the guy's a millionaire. He did it overnight. Like, you gotta keep doing that. You gotta own it, right? Like this is the product, bitch. Take it or leave it. You know what I mean? Because then you have these haters like TechCrunch. And what happens? Well, if you suddenly decide you want to, just in this example here, rebrand your product as like from like a pirate-esque kind of like, like cheating tool to an AI powered meeting note taker, well, it's not a good look, right? And that gives the haters like TechCrunch an opportunity to kind of stab him in the back and kind of, well, I guess stab him up front. Really, I mean, what a terrible analogy, right? But it's like, because they clearly just hate him outright. They're forthright about it. But it's like, point being, he rebranded Cluely as an AI powered meeting note taker, and then what happened? He looked weak, and then TechCrunch shit on him for it, right? So it's unfortunate that that's what happened. Again, he should have just been like, bitch, I'm the villain. This is the product, right? Like, it's too late now. You're off the beaten path. The minute you take a step off that beaten path, like, you're gone. You're over. Like, you'll never get back on it. Just embrace it. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's a similar thing with like frats and stuff, because like in college, if you're in a frat, oh, you're such a good boy, you put in your little hours in terms of like being the bouncer at the frat party, or like doing the dishes or whatever, being the bitch, and then you put in your 3 a.m. midnight oil in doing Secret Santa. You got your little Secret Santa gift, so you're up at 3 a.m. sort of like giving, participating in a circle jerk, giving each other Secret Santa gifts. It's like, and that's kind of an analogy, just while we're on the topic of being on the beaten path or not, right? It's like, being part of a frat is an excellent example of this idea, because it's like, you have to do all these little things, aka be on the beaten path, in order to quote unquote be accepted, and only then do the sorority girls and whatnot, like be like, oh my God, he's part of a frat, so I like him. He has high status. It's like, okay, I mean, you know what? Like maybe I don't like doing Secret Santa. Maybe I don't like being the bouncer at a frat party. Maybe I don't like being the bitch. Maybe I don't like doing the dishes for a bunch of people that I don't like. You know what I mean? It's like, you're better off kind of being the guy who figures out his dating, like let's face it, the only reason any masculine man would join a frat is to have high enough status to get with really good looking women, right? So that's the kind of the point. But it's like, I just explained the on the beaten path strategy. If you're off the beaten path, suddenly you're not constrained by the dishwashing, by the being the bouncer at the frat party, by the Secret Santa, by the 3 a.m. circle jerks, whatever, right? Talking about your feelings with your brothers, right? It's like you can get with really good women, good looking women, if you're a guy and you hit the gym and stuff. Um, but it's like the crab thing. It's like, oh, you get out of the bucket, right? And it's like people try and bring you back. It's like, oh, well, you're just you're just a guy that likes getting with women, right? Or whatever. It's like, you know, in this example, the character is off the beaten path, winning, right? Winning still, and yet receiving ire from his peers, right? And of course, just to land the plane here, and the only reason I kind of told this sort of analogy here is brought up this analogy because I think it's very analogous to Roy Lee and Cluley about the being on or off the beaten path. The point being in this, analogy though, is like once you're off the beaten path like that, and once you sort of figure out your strategy with what you're going to do without being part of a frat, and you receive some of that ire of like, oh, like, people start looking down on you like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like, just embrace it. You know what I mean? Like yes, it's like you are the villain and there's nothing anybody can do. You just focus on getting big. You just focus on getting your, ARR, MRR counts like through the roof, and you don't fucking care about anybody. You know what I mean? So it's like when Roy Lee says, "Oh, well, you know what? I think we actually, guys, we're actually not an AI coding interview cheating tool. We're an AI powered meeting note taker." It's like, dude, no, you're giving the haters like TechCrunch exactly what they want. And then what happens? Some guy doing a live stream reads the TechCrunch version of the drama, and maybe if that live streamer was a little bit less attuned to picking out propaganda, then he wouldn't have been able to tell that there's clearly a lot of animosity between TechCrunch and Roy Lee, and that's why this article is just written with this much vitriol. Maybe a little bit more naive live streamer would be like, "Oh wow, I can't believe it. I can't believe Roy Lee lied on his revenue numbers." And the guy got cold called. Okay, he was cold called. What are you gonna do? I hate cold callers too. All right. Enough about that. Claude's consumer growth surge continues after Pentagon deal debate. So I actually talked about this a little bit in the Finance Daily Show this morning. Thanks again to David Towell and Eric for having me on as a speaker. Yeah, so on Saturday we saw that there was a huge surge in US downloads for Claude, and also just in parallel uninstalls of ChatGPT. So when I brought it up kind of on the live stream and on the clips, it was because I was basically saying like, okay, well, a bunch of liberals following the news decided they wanted to send a political message and just, get with Claude, who stuck it to the man, right? Who went against Trump and Hegseth. And so it seems like that trend is continuing. There doesn't seem like there has been a dip in that. It seems like as of March 2nd, it seems like the number of US downloads of Claude was 149K, 25K more than ChatGPT's at 124K. Okay, so that's what's going on. We can see in this chart here that Claude's daily active user count is kind of looking like this parabolic shape, whereas Google Gemini and XAI's Grok are kind of a little bit more linear in their daily active user count growth. You can see here that with it, when it's just Claude, you can see that sort of, it seems almost be like an exponential growth kind of thing, going up to 12.5 million daily active users. It's worth noting that they haven't actually caught up to ChatGPT in terms of daily active user count yet. ChatGPT's daily active user count is at 100 million, so 100 million daily active users. And yes, the shape is exciting, but Claude is only at not even 12.5 million. So 12.5 Anthropic, 100 million. So yeah, 12.5 million Anthropic, 100 million ChatGPT, OpenAI. Now that being said, Anthropic's Claude is known to be better for enterprise and for government. So that's kind of what's going on. Speaking of, here's a story: Anthropic to challenge Department of War's supply chain label in courts. So I guess they're going to take this to court, Amodai is. And here's the thing, right? And I brought this up in the Finance Daily show this morning, but it's like Amodai is not acting with tact. Clearly, I mean, he's clearly been just like airing his dirty laundry. He did an internal memo to the company, just basically shitting on Altman. And he talked about how unfair it was that they were going to be labeled as a supply chain risk and everything. And of course, later, outside of the memo, it was reported by TechCrunch as well as Financial Times, like, oh, maybe the US government and Anthropic might get back together. And then that didn't happen. And then Hegseth, Secretary of War Hegseth, essentially designated Anthropic as a supply chain risk and then all that. Right. So the drama is ongoing and Amodai isn't looking strong here, unfortunately. Right. Because I'm not, I don't have a hard on against Amodai here, but I mean, yeah, like, he kind of apologized for the memo. I mean, that's not a good look. Excuse me. He said, talking about the memo, he apologized for the tone, calling it a difficult day for the company. And he said the memo didn't reflect his careful or considered views. I mean, that's not good. Like, you shouldn't have to say stuff like that. You should just kind of keep a lid on it. You know what I mean? Like, you have to know where that invisible line is and not cross it, right? When you're doing public speech, you know what I mean? So it's like, so the guy sits down, writes an angry blog, and then just sends it out to his company. It's like, that's not good. So yeah, so we'll just have to follow what happens next here. That's all I got for tonight. Kind of an interesting stream. Looks like we hit a half hour here. Hope you guys have a great Friday night, and we'll see you on the next one on Monday. Have a good one. Peace.